Greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight is August 25th, 2024. It's currently 11 after 5. My name is Brother John Hargrove. I serve as the president for UNIA-ACL Division 421 here in Atlanta. This is our mass meeting open to all members of the UNIA-ACL. As we open our meeting, there's some rituals that we follow. Let's see. Okay, so it's my executive body. First thing that we'll do is our pledge to the UNI flag. So those that can, please stand. Put your black fist in the air and repeat after me. I commit my body, mind, and spirit
I commit my body and spirit
to the protection, defense, and security
to the protection, defense, and security
of the red, black, and green.
of the red, black, and green.
I dedicate my life
I dedicate my life
to the redemption of Mother Africa
to the redemption of Mother Africa
and the liberation of her scattered Black children.
and the liberation of her scattered Black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants
I accept myself and my descendants
teachings of universal African nationalism.
the teachings of the universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. And I promise that our children will be instilled.
And I promise that our children will be instilled
with the purpose and knowledge of themselves.
with the purpose and knowledge of themselves
As African people.
as African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle.
In order that the cause of our struggle
will neither falter nor fail.
Will neither falter nor fail.
Until all Black people are free and united.
Until all Black people are free and united.
Through one God.
Through one God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
And one destiny.
Thanks, first. Great job.
Today's first.
You may be seated and you can mute your lines. So we've done a call to order and quorum. We have done our pledge to UNI flag. Next item on the agenda is our UNI rituals as ordained by Right Excellent Marcus Messiah Garvey. First is the opening hymn from Greenland's Icy Mountains. From Greenland's icy mountains, from India's coral strand, where Africa's sunny fountains roll down their golden sand. From many ancient rivers, from many palmy plains, they called us to deliver the land from error's chain. Shall we whose souls are lighted with wisdom from on high, shall we to men be knighted, the lamp of life deny? Salvation, O salvation, the joyful sound proclaim, to earth's remotest nation has learned Messiah's name. Waft, waft, ye winds, his story, and you, ye waters, roll, till like a sea of glory it spreads from pole to pole, till o'er our ransomed nation, the Lamb for sinners slain, Redeemer, King, Creator, in bliss returns to reign. Okay, somebody send me text messages. Okay, next we have our prayer. You may assume the position of prayer if you like. Almighty God, whose kingdom is everlasting, and whose power infinite, be gracious unto the Universal Negro Improvement Association, and so rule the hearts of thy servants, the President General, and the members of the High Executive Council, and all others in authority, that they, knowing the great responsibilities of their office, may above all things seek the honor and welfare of this race, and grant that all our people, considering the authority they bear, may faithfully and obediently honor them in accordance with our laws through Jesus Christ our Lord, who with thee and the Holy Ghost liveth and reigneth ever, one God, world without end. Amen. And last ritual, send him the message. 1 second, I'm sorry. Okay. Last ritual is or portion of our rituals is hymn Shine On Eternal Light. Shine on eternal light to greet our souls this day, dispel the gloominess of night, and drive our doubts away. Our longing eye prepare when war and strife shall cease, to view the morn soon to appear, the new era of peace. Thy glorious church, O God, no kingdom can remove, made without hands this blessed abode, the harbinger of love. Of all the gifts that flow from thy great throne above, we ask thee on our hearts bestow the gift of perfect love. My soul the light receives and dares truth to prove, not in blind ignorance believes, but knows that God is love. Come, love, and give new birth to man's destructive mind. Spread where confusion reigns on earth, goodwill to all mankind. Shine on, eternal light, thy penetrating ray shall turn the hour of darkest night into eternal day. Amen. That completes our rituals. I'll do a brief. Brother Art, are you available to take care of roll call for me?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank
Race
you.
first.
Race first. Thank you. Brother Art is our recording secretary for Division 421.
Okay, family. Tonight's roll call goes as this. We have President John. We have Brother Cornelius.
Hey.
We have Sister Cicely. We have Brother Aziza. Sister Aziza. New member Derek Bonds. Well, he's new to the meeting. Sister Diane, First Lady Vice President. Dr. Kuda, Third Lady Vice President. Dr. Shams, longtime supporter. Third Vice President, Brother Eric. Treasurer in Training, Najee. Sister Reveille. And Sister Rosa Robinson. And that's all on the call now. Race first.
Race first. Thank you, Brother Art. That makes 14 on the call. Only correction, Brother Najee is financial secretary in training. Brother Eric serves as our assistant treasurer in training. And speaking of that, brothers, we do need to get together. We need to have a regular meeting for our financial reports. Brother Eric, you on the line. Brother Najee, is he still on or did he have to jump off? Brother Najee may have had to jump off. We'll get back together with him. Brother Eric, yourself, Brother Ross, Marvin, myself, and Brother Najee from our financial group, we need to establish a regular meeting time to make sure we keep our financial reports updated. Yes, Brother Eric. So we'll talk about that. I'll put that as a note for our second September meeting. Okay, thank you, Brother Art, for roll call, and it makes 14, I think 14, 13 total. But Art, you on here twice for now. So thank you, everybody, for joining, being here with us. Ground rules for the call. Let's see. Please keep your lines muted when you're not speaking. When you do have a chance to speak, try to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes to allow everyone a chance to share. Please take notes while you are not speaking, and then when the time does avail itself, you can ask the questions that you would like. Sisters, don't give out your personal phone numbers. You can give out a business line or email. I think that's about it for the most part. Yes. I think that's it. That's all I could think of off the top of my head. Maybe something else, one or two things I'm missing, but we got the main things. Don't share your personal information for our sisters, and please keep your lines muted and be respectful. Okay, so that's the ground rules, and then we'll do preamble, and then I have the minutes from our previous meeting. So preamble of the UNIA for new members as well as veteran members, officers. We know we should commit this preamble to memory. So we will, this is a staple in our meetings. But Mr. Garvey also says this is a good way to introduce individuals to who the UNIA is. And it says the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League is a social, friendly, humanitarian, charitable, educational, institutional, constructive, and expansive society, and is founded by persons desiring to the utmost to work for the general uplift of the Negro peoples of the world. And the members pledge themselves to do all in their power to conserve the rights of their noble race and to respect the rights of all mankind, believing always in the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. The motto of the organization is one God, one aim, one destiny. Therefore, let justice be done to all mankind, realizing that if the strong oppresses the weak, confusion and discontent will ever mark the path of man, but with love, faith, and charity towards all, the reign of peace and plenty will be heralded into the world, and the generations of men shall be called blessed. So that is the preamble of the UNIA from our Constitution. With that, last opening item before we get to the topic would be reading of the minutes of our previous meeting, which was that August 11th? Brother Art, you have anything from August 11th that you can share with us?
Yeah, I got the minutes. 5:10, we open with the pledge and the UNIA Rituals, the hymns Greenly Ousted Mountains, and the rest of the rituals. 5:20, we did the Declaration of Rights. First Vice President O'Macius gave the review. The declaration was read. Questions were requested. One member, Danya, who was a new first-timer, asked some questions. And John asked about religious freedoms. At 6:05, we went to Officer's Share, and Baba James asked for help painting and donations for the Garvey Day event. 6:15, we went to Member Share, and several new visitors were at the meeting. One request for membership. Supporters spoke, and some gave good questions. And at 7 o'clock, the meeting closed. That's what I have.
That was a short 7 o'clock we closed. You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is what it is. Thank you for those meeting minutes. Any questions on our meeting minutes from August 11th? But yeah, our focus at that time was Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. It's an annual focus for us. That document was one of the pivotal components of the First International Convention of Negro Peoples of the World held in 1920. Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World was presented to us August 13th, 1920. So usually our mass meeting that centers around or that happens around the time of August 13th, we focus on the Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. If there aren't any questions I move that our officers accept the minutes from August 11th as official record. Basically, I'm making a unanimous call. If there's any objection, please state that objection. No objection. Oh, Eric, no. Thank you, Brother Eric. So Brother Art, you haven't sent those out, am I correct? I don't call getting the email for the 11th yet.
No, I'll get them to you in a couple days.
Okay, no problem. Great job with the minutes. Yeah, great job. So if there aren't any questions, and again, that's for a level of continuity, especially for our officers as well as our members, to know what's going on, what happened the previous meeting, what our trajectory is for the next meetings and so forth. One of the things a couple things that you spoke on, well, not really. We didn't speak much about convention, it seems, on the last meeting, but those are two things that have taken place since our last meeting. One was convention, and the other is Garvey Day here in Atlanta. We got a brief report from Brother Najee. Give me a second. He sent me some pictures as well. I can share some pictures with y'all as we discuss this report. Let me see. Race first. I want to keep that. This morning came to my, okay, maybe it didn't. No, I didn't save them. I'll touch on convention in a moment. Until then, let's see. I can touch on just briefly. We did well for Garvey Day. We had Garvey Day here in Atlanta, August 17th. I don't know if I got a flyer in here. I should have a flyer in here. I probably don't. No, I don't. Got everything else. But August 17th, we held our annual Marcus Garvey Day celebration. We did well from my standpoint. From what I saw as president, we did well. Always, I will have criticism and feel that we can do better. But I think we did a great job, and we improved some of the deficiencies that we had last year. Let me see. A couple brothers are not here, but I'm still gonna shout them out. Brother Malik is not gonna be able to make it. He gave a notice earlier, so he's got an excused absence. He did a great job throughout this entire process, working with the Shrine of the Black Madonna to make sure the grounds were ready. Several meetings and discussions and working sessions. So Brother Malik did a great job there leading that in times where I wasn't available. And also Brother Omasius, our first vice president. I got to give him a shout out. Drove up from Jacksonville, and he made a huge difference in some of our membership process, so to speak. Making sure we have a good flow as we are talking with new members, and making sure they fill out the paperwork correctly. We provide them with their new member folders and all of that information. So and keeping that streamlined. I think Brother Macy's did a great job. Brother Cornelius was there the entire time as well. Always available to support. Sister Diane came in and helped out as soon as she got there. Lady President definitely was there supporting as well. Ross Marvin came out. brought the Black Government ID machine. And as always, he's one of the last ones to leave. So we got to make sure we make sure everybody gets their Black Government IDs. And that's something else we'll talk about later. Who else? Brother James came out, brought the family. Brother Eric, my apologies. Let me not overlook Brother Eric. Did a great job day of as well. Great job, Brother Eric. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you. Anything that was needed, even if it wasn't UNIA, Brother Eric was there. So Black Shrine of the Black Madonna has a feeding program that they do on the same day that we have Garvey Day, and Brother Eric was there helping out with that before we got going with our stuff. So great job, all officers, everyone that attended. And again, yeah, we did a good job overall as a program. We'll talk about more of the details in our upcoming September executive meeting. But yeah, we did well. And are there any questions or comments on Garvey Day? And I got pictures, but they're all in my phone. I thought I had downloaded them so that I could show them, but I didn't do that yet. So I don't have anything to show right now.
Yes, President John, sorry for being late and everything to today's meeting. I was just wondering, how many new members did we get on that day, if it wasn't said already?
I don't have those numbers.
Okay.
From what I counted, I think it was like 15, from what I counted.
Okay.
So, but we got to confirm the paperwork with the payments, and that has been a little messy.
Okay.
But from an overall standpoint, financially, we did well. People registering, filling out the information, we did well. I just got to bring the two together to match the joining fees or the yearly dues with each of the members to make sure they get credit.
Okay.
Any other questions on Garvey Day? Okay, and let me make a note for that. I don't know if I got that. Yeah, I do got it up here. So Garvey Day 2024 and 2025. So that'll be some things that we talk about in our September executive meeting. How we did this Garvey Day, and start planning for Garvey Day next year. Okay, so that's the minutes. That's where we are. Tonight's topic is UNIA versus USA. Hey, Sister Diane, greetings. Not asking anything from you, but from our
Greetings, Brother John.
greetings, yes. From our study group, have we gotten to this? Are we reading this chapter now?
I believe that we read it already. We haven't gone over the questions though.
Okay. Well, we get a second review. Well, let me think. Well, all right, yeah. We'll just get this was on the topic, on the agenda. Proceed.
Okay. That chapter essentially talks about Garvey's technique as a propagandist, if that's a word, to counter the myriads of propaganda. Are you gonna read it?
We're reading USA versus UNI.
Okay. Yes. So it shows a lot of the propaganda and a lot of things that were done to ban the various publications. that Garvey had put in place. But we'll see all that as we unravel the chapter. It's an interesting one.
Almost there. I'm pretty sure it's the next chapter. Okay. Found it. For those new new members out there and new members in the audience, the topic for tonight is USA versus UNIA. That topic comes from the book Race First by Dr. Tony Martin. This is one of our foundational documents here in the UNIA here at Division 421, but it details the history of Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. So it's one of the best historical compositions of Mr. Garvey and the Garvey movement. And we study, we study this regularly, especially for our new members. So tonight's topic comes from that text. Okay, I don't know. I think this is a long chapter from what I remember. So I was broken up into 2 parts. So I may need some help reading this. But without any further ado, if there aren't any questions, just to be clear before we start the reading, because once we start the reading, it's going to be a good 45 minutes with no questions.
Peace, brother. How you doing?
Greetings, Giovanni.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm great. My question would have been pertaining to finding members out in Baltimore.
We actually have a division in Baltimore. And we actually have a very good relationship with that division and their President Everett Winchester.
Oh, okay. Because I was on the website. I have it saved on my Chrome, and I was trying to get in contact with one of the members out there, but I wasn't able to successfully at all.
Yeah, we can definitely help you with that. How did you get connected to this meeting? Did you get the email or did someone send you an invitation?
Someone sent me an invitation from one of the numbers I called on the website.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So they sent you to us. Okay. Okay. 1 second. I'm gonna just give you his number right now.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what this is about. Great question. Brother Everett Winchester, President Division 106 Baltimore, his phone number 443 466 0433.
Thank you, Aki. And you said his name is Eric Winchester?
Everett Winchester. Everett, Everett. But definitely reach out.
Eric, okay. And you said, I'm sorry, what division again, Aki?
106 Baltimore.
Division 106 Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Aki.
No problem. Great question. Any other questions before we get into the reading? Okay. USA versus UNIA, according to Dr. Tony Martin. Garvey is a West Indian Negro. In addition to his activities in endeavoring to establish the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation, he has also been particularly active among the radical elements in New York City in agitating the Negro movement. Unfortunately, however, he has not yet violated any federal law whereby he can be proceeded against on the grounds of being an undesirable alien from the point of view of deportation. It occurs to me, however, from the attached clipping that there might be some proceeding against him for fraud in connection with his Black Star Line propaganda. And I guess to give some context as to why we are reading this, as you know, we established the agenda in January, but August is a special month for us. It's a month of celebration, but at the same time, we have to reflect on why the UNIA is not more successful today based on the success that we were able to have over 100 years ago. So what tonight's lesson, and it looks like we'll talk about this next mass meeting, it talks about some of the challenges that the UNIA had to overcome and had to endure in order to survive, to still be here today. So it gives some of the background as to what the UNIA and what Mr. Garvey went through. Okay, so first quote comes from J. Edgar Hoover, looking for a reason to let's see, from the view of deportation, to deport Mr. Garvey. All right, next quote. Only crooks and thieves and cowards fear to go to prison. Men with principles don't care about jails. It's Marcus Garvey. The United States provided Garvey with the large Black population base, the financial and technological resources, and the strategic location at the center of the world in Pan-African affairs that were the objective conditions against which he could rise to world prominence. His appearance in the United States, however, coincided with savage official repression against radical organizations, and it was not long before Garvey himself was the object of official scrutiny. In his 1917 pamphlet denouncing the East St. Louis riots, there appeared without comment the information that the speech had been delivered, quote, before a large and enthusiastic gathering of Negro Americans and West Indians, at which the police captain of the borough precinct, attended by more than 10 detectives, police lieutenants, and Secret Service men were present, end quote. Such immediate official interest in Garvey is not difficult to explain, for Garvey was, after all, provoking officialdom at a time when the official mind usually saw in the desire of Black people to be free and equal a problem of law and order and precious little else. To this kind of mentality, even the National Urban League, the NAACP, and Black Republicans trying to enfranchise members of the race could on occasion be viewed as threats to the peace. These attitudes were expressed by Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer in his 1919 report, Radicalism and Sedition Among the Negroes as Reflected in Their Publications, which found fault with the Garvey speech, which preached a doctrine of the Negro for the Negro. Similar attitudes were also expressed in the 1920 report of the Lusk Committee of the New York State Legislature into Revolutionary Radicalism. Their acknowledgement of the oppression of Afro-Americans was most explicit. The most interesting, as well as one of the most important features of radical and revolutionary propaganda, they stated, is the appeal made to those elements of our population that have a just cause of complaint with the treatment they have received in this country. This admission, notwithstanding the eradication of racism, was predictably passed over in favor of a law and order solution. The very fact that the Negro has many just causes of complaint adds to the seriousness of the propaganda and should encourage all loyal and thoughtful Negroes in this state to organize to oppose the activities of such radicals, which cannot be led to serious trouble if they are permitted to continue the propaganda which they now disseminate in large volume. The same ideas cropped up in the opinions of the American consul at Kingston, Jamaica, who saw Garvey as a quote-unquote clever scoundrel whose civil rights activity made him a menace. In the words of this official, quote, while he is while he is clever enough to temper the propaganda with statements that he is for the Negro rather than against the white man or any government, his speeches are not lacking in any references to fighting for Negro rights, and I believe that a tendency of his propaganda is to alienate the loyalty of the American and British Negroes to his association, end quote. Thus did fighting for the black man's rights become a crime. Garvey, for his part, did precious little to calm the fears of the United States officialdom. It could not be otherwise, for in order to reach and stir the black masses, he had to say the things that needed to be said. In his 1917 denunciation of the East St. Louis riots, for example, his language gave no indication of the fact that he was an alien in the country for little more than a year. Addressing an assemblage that contained a goodly share of police officers in the era of deportation of foreign-born radicals. He condemned the collusion of civil rights authorities in the massacre as a crime against humanity. For 300 years, he said, the Negroes of America have given their lifeblood to make the Republic the first among the Negroes of the world, and all to make the Republic the first among the Negroes of the world. And all this time, there has never been even 1 year of justice, but on the contrary, a continuous round of oppression. Let me get a sip of water, please. Many of his early speeches, too, urged black men to participate further in white men's wars. Oh, hold on. Let me read that again. Many of his early speeches, too, urged black men not to participate further in white men's wars after their vain sacrifices in the World War. In a speech delivered not long after the termination of hostilities, he declared, quote, the first dying that has to be done by the black man in the future will be done to make himself free. And when we are finished, if we have any charity to bestow, we may die for the white man. But as for me, I think I have stopped dying for him, end quote. This speech scandalized the Lusk Committee. Their comment was not unexpected. Quote, these extravagant and bombastic utterances may look trivial in cold print, but the continuous utterance of such sentiments has a very disquieting and pernicious effect upon the untutored element of the Negro population, end quote. Not least of Garvey's provocations to United States officialdom were his ambiguous flirtations with communism. Like many other black leaders, he resolutely prevented the communists from co-opting his organization, while at the same time hesitating to condemn them, at times openly endorsing the system of government in Russia. In many other ways, Garvey seems to have gone out of his way to harass United States officialdom. The Washington Conference of the Limitation of Armament, for example, was greeted by a Garvey telegram to the effect that 400 million black people were unrepresented, and commending to them President Harding's promise of democracy for black folk. Again, in 1922, Garvey wrote Secretary of State Charles E. Hughes asking for a Department of State representative to attend the session on colonialism at his international convention. The offer was declined. There was little about Garvey's program that could not be construed as a threat, direct or indirect, to the United States. That's a very important line. His doctrine of militant racial struggle could sometimes be transferred into strikes against such powerful United States corporations as the United Fruit Company and several Latin American countries. His African program, too, with its anti-imperialist and nationalistic implications, would, if successful, augur ill for American financial interests. Garvey took the position that American capital could seek to expand its influence in Africa, and took the position that American capital would seek to expand its influence in Africa. In 1929, he wrote, quote, Europe today is bankrupt and cannot advance much capital for the development of African countries, and therefore they are trying to interest American capitalists in the exploitation of the wealth of the great continent, end quote. Having determined practically from the inception of his sojourn in the United States that Garvey was a dangerous character, various governmental, police, quasi-officials, and corporate agencies subjected Garvey and the UNIA to a constant surveillance of international proportions. Where possible, their surveillance was supplemented by infiltration into the UNIA. Garvey's charge that, quote, agents of governments, organizations, corporations, and individuals interested in the exploitation of Negroes operated among the membership and officers of the association in several cities, end quote, was hardly an exaggeration. One UNIA Council General, Garvey noted, upon whom he depended for legal advice, was appointed an assistant attorney general after his conviction. White reporters who interviewed Garvey were also subjected of being intelligence men. At a speech in Jamaica shortly after his deportation from the United States in 1927, Garvey declared, "The United States government got men to investigate me. All manner of Secret Service people were set after me, and 20% of my employees were United States Secret Service. I believe that I must have cost the United States about $5 million in 10 years. So a very costly and thorough investigation and surveillance campaign against Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. Evidence of the official surveillance of Garvey sometimes cropped up in unexpected places. At hearings before a congressional subcommittee on appropriations in 1921, for example, the question came up of overload pay for a Black Treasury Department employee who had been hired to transcribe proceedings at, quote unquote, some radical Negro meetings. A first-class stenographer was required, and a white one would not do, since he would be liable to be thrown out of the meeting or killed. A qualified Black stenographer had to be sought outside of the government services, but in vain. The Department of Justice, which commissioned his work, therefore had to use a government employee. These meetings took place in Washington, D.C. in July and September 1920. The stenographer's task was described by a chief clerk of the Treasury Department as, quote unquote, quote, very important and confidential stenographic work, end quote, consisting of, quote, discreetly taking verbatim reports of the proceedings of Negro radicals, end quote. It transcribed that this person had previously been employed as early as 1918 to cover a UNIA meeting in Baltimore, Maryland. Interesting, we were just talking about Baltimore. The role of the Department of Justice in this case was not an isolated event, for much of the official surveillance of Garvey emanated from this department. In 1919, for example, officials of the Panama Canal contacted the department's Bureau of Investigation on the question of Garvey's threat to both areas. The correspondence soon found its way to the Bureau's J. Edgar Hoover, who demonstrated a more than passing acquaintance with Garvey. He expressed genuine regret over the fact that Garvey had not yet violated any federal law making him liable to deportation. He suggested, however, that proceedings might be sustained against him for fraud in connection with the Black Star Line. Hoover did not fail to acknowledge his adversary's medal, describing him as, quote, one of the most prominent Negro agitators in New York, end quote, an exceptionally fine orator, creating much excitement among the Negroes through his steamship proposition, end quote. Garvey concluded his observations in predictable fashion. He said, quote, in his paper, The Negro World, the Soviet-Russian rule is upheld, and there is open advocation of Bolshevism, end quote. By 1920, British officials who regularly shared information on Garvey with their American counterparts were cognizant of the fact that the Justice Department agents were watching Garvey closely. The department's surveillance extended to Garvey's economic undertakings. The director of its Bureau of Investigation even attempted to influence the manner in which the prosecutor conducted the case against Garvey after he was arrested in 1922. Garvey was made painfully aware of the department's surveillance through the zeal of a black agent of the Bureau of Investigation's New York office, Special Agent James E. Amos, an ex-bodyguard of former President Theodore Roosevelt. Garvey's complaints against Amos included collusion with anti-Garvey individuals, membership in the NAACP, authorization of prejudicial news releases during the 1923 trial, encouragement of civil litigation against Garvey, an unjustified raid on the Harlem Liberty Hall, and much more. Amos's harassment continued to 1926 when J. Edgar Hoover, now director of the department's Bureau of Investigation, sent on a secret report from Amos, who now alleged wrongly that Garvey was instructing his wife from jail to collect monies in circumstances amounting to the use of the mails to defraud. Hoover maintained his interest in Garvey even after the latter's deportation. In 1928, he received a report of Garvey's doing in England from a quote-unquote confidential source. In 1929, presumably because of his continuing interest in Garvey, Hoover's aid was enlisted in the case of John O. Garrett versus United States, where an attempt was being made to recover portions of the $22,500 of Black Star Line money still impounded by the United States Shipping Board. As late as 1930, Hoover was still dealing with the UNIA, this time proffering information to the Department of State, which was investigating the activities of the Trinidadian in Chicago suspected of being connected with Garvey's movement. United States surveillance of Garvey's activities abroad was as diligently pursued as surveillance at home. American consular agents and confidential sources from Sweden to Liberia, from Canada to Trinidad, kept a close watch on Garvey, his organization, and his ramifications in their respective areas. In 1919, the American Embassy in Stockholm, Sweden, informed Washington by telegraph that a Swedish paper had published a sensational dispatch from London on the Black Star Line, and Garvey's boast of imminent race. In 1919, the American Embassy in Stockholm, Sweden, informed Washington by telegram that a Swedish paper had published a quote-unquote sensational dispatch from London on the Black Star Line and Garvey's boast of imminent race war. Reports came from elsewhere in Europe, too, such as in a 1930 report from the ambassador to France on the radical black movement in France and an instance of its connection with Garvey. And when in 1919, the London embassy passed on to Washington the British Secret Intelligence report, Unrest Among the Negroes, including data on Garvey and his associates, the Department of State was highly appreciative of British attention to, quote, the problem of Negro unrest throughout the world, end quote. Expressed a desire to obtain all possible information from London. This is interesting since much of the British information was obtained through surveillance of their own carried on inside the United States. In 1920, the presence in London of Garvey's ex-spouse, Amy Ashwood Garvey, was on her way to Liberia, occasioned a telegram from the United States Embassy to ascertain from the Department of State whether she was involved in quote-unquote Garvey's anti-white activities. The department thought she was not. In 1921, United States officials in London, acting on Department of State's advice, refused temporarily to allow Garvey's former employer, Deuce Muhammad Ali, to obtain a visa to enter the United States, despite Muhammad's willingness to say uncomplimentary things about Garvey when interviewed by the United States Consul General. White Englishman Dr. Charles Garnett came under investigation by virtue of having chaired Garvey's Royal Albert Hall meeting. The Department of State's interest in Garveyism in Liberia could not have been more explicit. In 1921, the United States Minister, Resident, and Consular General was constructed to quote, watch closely and report fully all activities, end quote, of the UNIA. His instructions continued, quote, the department desires to know the names of persons in Liberia connected with this apparently subversive movement and wishes. Try to get through this page. All right. The department desires to know the names of persons in Liberia connected with this apparently.
You want me to continue, Brother John?
Thank you, Sister Diane.
Okay.
I was here. His instructions continued.
Okay. So I'll just start the paragraph. The Department of State's interest in Garveyism in Liberia could not have been more explicit. In May 1921, the United States minister resident and consul general was instructed to watch closely and report fully all activities of the UNIA. His instructions continued. The department desired to know the names of persons in Liberia connected with the apparently subversive movement and wishes to be informed, especially with regards to Gabriel Johnson, mayor of Monrovia, who is reported to have taken an active part in furthering the aims of the movement. This United States representative was in the happy position of being able to report to Washington that he had embarked on Garvey's, that he had embarked on the Garvey's trial even before being ordered to do so. Reports on Garveyism also reached the Departments of State from United States officials in Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone. After Garvey's deportation from the United States, he visited Canada on several occasions. Not unnaturally, he did not escape the ubiquitous gaze of Uncle Sam's representatives on these occasions. In late October 1928, less than a year after his expulsion from the United States, he arrived in Canada and spoke in favor of Al Smith, Democratic presidential candidate in the eminent United States election. He was promptly arrested, brought before a board of inquiry of the local immigration authorities in Montreal and ordered deported under regulations prohibiting political agitators. Upon explaining that he was in transit, he was placed on a $100 bond given until November 7th to leave and ordered not to indulge in any more public statements. The Negro world presumed that all this must be the handiwork of the Republican Party, and it was right. The American Consul General in Montreal, unknown of course to the public, claimed credit for the action of the Canadian authorities, writing to Washington on the day after the deadline for Garvey's departure. He informed the superior that Garvey had arrived in Canada 2 weeks previous and had delivered his speech in support of the Democratic Party. Garvey then, for some unexplained reason, called at the Consul General's office, but left before he could be interviewed. At this stage, the office contacted the Canadian immigration authorities and informed them that Garvey was an ex-convict and inadmissible into Canada, whereupon the Canadian authorities, in their official words, acted quietly and promptly. From the Anglophone West Indies came periodic observation on Garvey and Garveyites from such places as Jamaica and the United States Virgin Island, where no less a person than the President of the United States in 1923 requested a report on a local political figure suspected of being a Garveyite. Surveillance in this area was particularly keen in Trinidad, especially in the 2 years or so immediately after World War I. This was due largely to the serious character of the upheaval and riots which occurred there in 1919. The American Consul in Port-au-Prince conferred regularly and swapped information on Garveyites' influence with the British government and police authorities. Not much escaped his attention. Characteristic of his zeal was his request from the local police authorities in 1920 for confidential character sketches of 2 young Trinidadians mentioned in a local Black newspaper as seeking employment in the Black Star Line. The consul in Trinidad was among the strongest critics of what he considered Washington's tolerance in allowing Garvey's propaganda to leave New York for the island. In 1920, he admonished the Department of State. I have several times lately in dispatch to the department mentioned the pernicious effects here already of the propaganda from New York, which was probably largely responsible for the recent riot in Trinidad and Tobago. I cannot too strongly express my own opinion to the effect that this propaganda from New York should not be tolerated by our government. This worldwide surveillance extended inevitably into Latin America, where some of the strongest UNIA branches existed. Reports flowed regularly into the Department of State from such places as Costa Rica, Panama, and Cuba, where in 1921, the American Charge Affairs requested an informal investigation of the UNIA and the nationality of its officers. In Santo Domingo, then an occupied country, United States Marines at the beginning of the 1920s suppressed the UNIA and arrested its leaders. In Latin America, Department of State surveillance was supplemented by the United States Fruit Company. In January 1920, for example, Marie Duchelier, writing from Panama City, where she was engaged on a promotional tour for the UNIA and Black Star Line, explained that the United Fruit Company had used its influence with the government of Panama and the canals and the canal zone to try to prevent the UNIA delegation from landing. She reported that local Blacks, together with the West Indians, and led by a radical Spanish Panamanian, Morales, force the hand of the authorities by threatening to strike on the canal and burn down the city of Colón. The company also kept a check on occasion on monies remitted by its workmen to Garvey's organization. Such information was turned over to the local United States Council. The United States Fruit Company was not the only non-government or quasi-government body supplementing official surveillance. Another was the National Civic Federation. In August 1920, in the midst of Garvey's first International Convention of Negro People of the World, the Federation embarked on a novel means of ascertaining Garvey's position. A representative simply visited and interviewed several of the most important Afro-American political figures over the period of a few days. The first person visited by the interviewer, Charles Mowbray White, one sec, was Charles Mowbray White, was none other than Garvey himself. Garvey presented him with a copy of the Declaration of Rights of the Negro People of the World and regaled him with stories of the UNIA sympathy with communist and Irish liberationist. Garvey also explained that he did not advocate the return of all Black people to Africa and relegated W.E.B. Du Bois to be the status of antebellum Negro. To Garvey's intimations of the intention to visit Africa soon, White responded by appending to his report a warning that the British government should be advised to keep him out of that continent. 2 days after White was at the office of the Messenger, where he met with A. Philip Randolph and Chandler Owens. Owen did most of the talking, but White reported that Randolph concurred in his partner's sentiments. Here White learned that Garvey could not possibly be Bolsheviks because he had made no effort to study the socialist movement headed by us. Garvey, they said, was an uneducated ignoramus who knew nothing about the Afro-American being leader of a purely West Indian movement. Owens and Randolph even advanced the hypothesis that Garvey might be working with the Department of Justice to destroy Black solidarity by siphoning away money from the rival organization. They also express the conviction that Garvey's slogan of Africa for the Africans was unscientific, whereas they were scientific internationals. They predicted that Garvey's schemes would collapse within 3 months. 2 days later, White visited W.E.B. Du Bois, who, like Randolph and Owens, considered the UNIA a West Indian rather than an Afro-American movement. Okay, so according to White's transcript, Du Bois attributed a large following to Garvey, not only in the Caribbean, but also in the East Indies. Du Bois thought that Garvey was allied with Bolsheviks and Sinn Feiners and predicted a not too distant demise of the UNIA. So White's mission took him next to Frederick Moore of the well-established Black Weekly, the New York Age. The New York Age. He too considered the UNIA a West Indian affair. He boasted about how nice and conservative his paper was, and expressed puzzlement at the authorities' reluctance to pounce on the mountebank Garvey, mountebank Garvey, who we accuse of utopia and socialistic preachings. The line between surveillance and harassment of Garvey and the UNIA was a thin one. Official surveillance, observably, was not an end in itself. It was merely the backdrop against which a protracted war of attrition was enacted, as a result of which, over an 11-year period, Garvey and his organization were relentlessly harassed, culminating in the arrest, trials, imprisonment, and deportation of Garvey himself. So this process started not long after Garvey's arrival in the United States. The Negro World of June 14, 1919, carried a Garvey's account of his recent appearance before an official described as a state attorney of New York at the latter behest. Garvey claimed that some political grafters and conscienceless crook had informed the New York police authorities that Negro World was responsible for mailing bombs through the post to certain persons. These charges were not proved, and the informers were expelled from the UNIA. So during this same month, Garvey's tribulations involving Assistant District Attorney Edwin P. Kilrow began. So out of the conflict between the two came a libel action brought against Garvey by Kilrow. A retraction followed in the new Negro World. Kilrow later admitted that the only person he could find to testify against Garvey during his investigation of the Black Star Line was Tyler, Garvey's attempt assassin. According to Garvey, Tyler announced that he was sent to Kilrow to get him before firing the shots. So one of the more interesting offenses offensives in the continuing campaign against Garvey was the attempt by the Department of State to prevent him from re-entering the United States after a visit to the West Indies and Central America in 1921. For all its seriousness, the case was heavily overlaid with melodrama as Garvey and the department and its consular representatives played hide and seek all over the Caribbean for 5 months. Garvey left New York in February 1921 and journeyed by train to Florida, from where he proceeded by sea to Havana, Cuba. He made a triumphant tour of Cuba and was received by the island's president. From Cuba, he went to Jamaica. Then the plot thickened. On March 1st, the American consul in Kingston, Charles L. Latham, had informed the Secretary of State in Washington that the Daily Gleaner announced Garvey's impending arrival. He requested instructions concerning the visaing of Garvey's passport. Should he intend returning to the United States, this in view of what he considered Garvey's subversive record. On March 21st, the State Department dispatched its reply. In view of the activities of Garvey in political and race agitation, you are instructed to refuse him a visa and to inform at the same time the consul at Port Antonio, Jamaica, of his action. On April 11th, Garvey duly presented himself at Latham's office and requested a visa to travel to the United States Canal Zone, and then back to the United States. He was accompanied by Cleveland Augustus Jacks and Amy Euphemia Jacks, later his second wife, who was then Secretary of the Negroes Factories Corporations. All three had booked passage for the same afternoon. Latham informed Garvey that he could not grant him a visa without time for due consideration and advised him to return the following day. He issued visa to Garvey's 2 companions. However, all 3 therefore canceled their bookings for the Canal Zone and sailed next day for Port Limon, Costa Rica instead. Latham informed Washington of all this and of the fact that all American consular okay, hold on. Okay. All American consular officials in the Caribbean ports had been notified by mail that Garvey was not to be granted a visa. More details of this notification was dispatched to the State Department on April 13th from Jamaica. Washington was advised that the Consul General at Panama had been telegraphed because Garvey might yet attempt to land there. In such a case, the view was expressed that he would arouse considerable racial antagonism among the Negroes in the Canal Zone and the Republic of Panama should he succeed. So once in Costa Rica, Garvey attempt, as the United States official had predicted, to obtain a visa for Panama. Secretary of State Charles E. Hughes on April 26th informed his legation in San Jose, Costa Rica, by telegram that Garvey must not be granted a visa. On May 2nd, the legation at San Jose replied, advising Hughes that Garvey had already left for Boca del Toro, Panama, by the time that Hughes' communication arrived. By the time his communication had arrived, he had entered Panama with a visa from the Panamanian Council in Boston. In Panama, he was again refused entry into the United States Canal Zone. He therefore boarded a launch and set out for Panamanian territory of Colon, where he arrived in full view of the American authorities. So from Panama, Garvey returned to Jamaica, and by May 7th, American Consul Latham was informing Washington that Garvey might attempt to enter the United States as a crew member of the Black Star Line. Quinoa, then in Cuba. On May 10th, a secret urgent note was dispatched from Secretary of State Hughes in Washington. Quote, refuse visa crew list SS Kanawha if Garvey's name appears thereon, unless his name is removed therefrom. So Latham, perturbation increased shortly thereafter. When he was informed that Garvey had shipped from Santiago de Cuba as pursuer without the knowledge of the American Consul there. He suspected that Garvey might try to sail for Port Limon on this vessel on or about May 20th, and telegraph instructions as to preventing Garvey from shipping as a member of the crew or passenger. So the Secretary of State on May 20th admitted that the Department of State could not prevent Garvey from traveling to Costa Rica, but he reminded the American Consul at Port Limon to refuse Garvey a visa for the United States if he should show up there. In the United States, meanwhile, the UNIA attorney had obtained a hearing at the Department of State requesting Garvey's return on grounds that he was needed to transact Black Star Line business. A week and a half after this interview, however, a memorandum from the Office of the Solicitor of the Department was still referring to Garvey as a troublemaker and suggesting that he should be kept out of the United States if possible. Though expressing doubt about the legality of refusing a bill of health, though expressing doubt about legality of refusing a bill of health to the Antonio Mariso, as suggested by Latham. If Garvey should attempt to ship to the United States as a crew member, in such a case, though, it would be sufficient to refuse to visa the crew to ensure that all aliens would be kept on board if it arrived without a visaed crew list. Where am I? Okay, so nevertheless, by the time this elaborate farce was about to play itself out on June 22nd, Garvey, still in Jamaica, dispatched a telegram to Secretary of State Hugh requesting that he instruct his counsel to visa his passport. By this time, fortunately for Garvey, a new person had assumed Latham's position in Kingston. Garvey presented this to counsel on June 23rd with a request from the directors of Black Star Line in New York that his passport be visaed. By some coincidence, the Department of State found itself temporarily with an acting Secretary of State replacing Hughes at the same time as a new face appeared at the Kingston consulate. The new combination of actors first authorized the granting of Garvey's visa on June 25th, and then finally issued it to him in Kingston on June 28th. Still, Garvey's problem was not yet over. On arrival in New Orleans on a banana boat by way of Guatemala, he was denied by the immigration authorities, who were surprised at his valid passport and were evidently playing for time while they could devise some new scheme to hinder him further. He was finally allowed to enter the country after dispatching telegram to the president and the Secretary of State on June 13th. Whoa, hold on. My screen did something crazy. Give me a second here. Oh, brother. Hold on, my writing just got real tiny. I'm trying to blow it up. Okay, all right, sorry. Still, Garvey's problem were not over. On arrival in New Orleans on a banana boat by way of Guatemala, he was detained by the immigration authorities, who were surprised at his valid passport and were evidently playing for time while they could devise some new scheme to hinder him further. He was finally allowed to enter the country after dispatching telegram to the president and the Secretary of State on July 13th, 1921. The reason for the sudden granting of Garvey's visa is not clear. Perhaps the fortuitous and simultaneous change of personnel handling his case, both in Kingston and in Washington, may have been the stroke of good fortune that saved him from an indefinite enforced stay outside of the United States. After his imprisonment in 1925, an immigration officer in Atlanta provided another explanation, namely that Garvey was allowed back in order that he might be proceeded against. Garvey himself, obviously not fully aware of the nature of the correspondence emanating from Washington during his exclusion, concluded, and not necessarily wrongly, that his Black enemies had goaded Washington's into this action, but that the real culprit was the counsel in Kingston, Charles Latham. So, being thus cast into the role of villain, displeased Latham, and he complained to Washington that New York papers were carrying Garvey's opinion that it was his recourse to the Department of State that led to a reversal of Latham's intention to prevent his re-entry. Latham reminded the department of its role in the affair, and his pique was understandable. Amy Jacks Garvey, discussing her husband's imprisonment in 1927, thought that the British government was implicated in the episode. Official harassment also included annual efforts to disrupt Garvey's annual conventions. He was tried for criminal libel during the first 1920 convention. The Department of State effort to keep him out of the United States in 1921 almost succeeded in causing him to miss the convention for that year. He managed to obtain re-entry into the country just over 2 weeks before the convention was due to begin. The refusal of visa to Duse Muhammad Ali in April this is very sensitive. If you touch it, it disappears and get real tiny. Sorry, guys. Yes. Okay, so Duse Muhammad. Hello? Was someone saying something?
No, you let me see, make sure. No,
Okay. All right. So so the refusal of the visa to Duse Muhammad Ali in April may possibly have been influenced by a fear that he might attend the convention. Certainly, this was a motive in attempt by immigration authorities some weeks before the convention began to deny entry to UNIA potentate Gabriel M. Johnson. The 1923 convention had to be canceled altogether because Garvey had been refused bail after his conviction for alleged mail fraud. On April 4th, 1924, with that year's convention barely began, a grand jury indicted Garvey for an alleged fraudulent income tax return for 1921. Garvey was arrested. So Garvey was arrested while presiding over the assembly, but this time managed to obtain release on bail and was able to continue with the convention. Special Agent Amos of the Department of Justice bragged that the arrest had been a deliberate attempt to embarrass the convention. It was not uncommon for Liberty Halls to be raised by the authorities. Possibly the most serious of these episodes was one which come to be known in UNIA circle as the Chattanooga outrage The incident took place on August 4th, 1927, when, in the word of the Negro world, a mob of white devils raided a peaceful meeting of the Chattanooga, Tennessee division and killed, wounded, and imprisoned several Garveyites. Apparently, the police had previously prohibited UNIA meetings, street meetings only, according to the Negro world. On the night in question, okay, so,
Diane, you want me to help?
yeah, my phone is, I'm doing it from my phone. And sometimes when I try to move the word, it kind of gets away from me. Do you mind?
Sure. I think we're going to page like 190. We got a couple pages left. On the night in question, the police invaded an indoor meeting. Members of the Universal African Legion stationed at the door requested the police to produce warrants authorizing their entry, whereupon the police refused and opened fire. The Legionnaires returned the fire. The result was a number of casualties on both sides. The Baltimore Afro-American, normally hostile to Garvey, expressed its indignation at the action of these Southern police. It editorialized, quote, "The Chattanooga riot represents the typical Southern white reaction to colored organizations provided with uniforms, weapons. In Tennessee, a Negro cannot join the state militia, but he can join the African Guards of Garvey, and the women are recruited as Black Cross nurses. 4 UNIA members were subsequently tried and convicted on charges arising out of this incident. They were assisted by the UNIA Defense Fund set up to meet the emergency." In Fort Smith, Arkansas, the charter of the local UNIA division was seized and 7 of its officers fined and imprisoned in 1924. A year earlier, in the wake of the shooting death of ex-Garveyite J.W.H. Eason, a Department of Justice raid took place on a mass meeting of the New Orleans division. The New York Amsterdam News reported that 21 persons were arrested. The records of the division were seized, and nationwide anarchist plot among Black people was supposedly uncovered. The Department of Justice announced that it would examine all of the 2,000 to 8,000 persons they suspected were members of the New Orleans division. Garvey immediately dispatched a telegram and a letter to the United States Attorney General protesting the raid and informing him that the UNIA was not only not anarchist, but actually loyal. A top nation official of the UNIA, Thomas W. Anderson, Assistant Secretary General, expressed the satisfaction of martyrdom felt by Garveyite victims of such raids. "We have been to prison for the Universal Negro Improvement Association, thank God. If our going to prison or even suffering death would advance the cause of Negro freedom as advocated by the Universal, we would as willingly enter the prison cells or the vale of death as we would take a drink of water when thirsty." A meeting of the Charleston, South Carolina division was invaded by police in 1922 because members refused to furl the red, black, and green flag. The president was arrested and placed in ball and chains. On December 8, 1921, a white police inspector addressed the Detroit, Michigan division and apologized for previous police assault on a Liberty Hall in which some Garveyites were arrested and one, Mr. Carey, badly beaten. Garvey himself was subject to similar harassments. On tour in 1922, he had to obtain an injunction to prevent the police chief in Oakland, California, from banning his meeting, and he ran into similar trouble in Los Angeles. When he arrived in New Orleans, the police prevented his first meeting from taking place, and Garvey once more had to resort to an injunction. The meeting took place the following night with 2,500 people inside the Longshoremen's Hall, 4,000 outside. The police chief and several dozen officers lined themselves up in front of the platform facing Garvey. Undaunted, Garvey launched into an attack on the chief, who promptly threatened to lock him up. Garvey thereupon ordered the chief to sit down. For the first time, Garvey commented a few weeks later, "We made a Southern police chief eat his own words and sit down in the heart of the South." The official campaign against Garvey reached into his private life. Garvey charged that the prosecution for his mail fraud divorce had brought his divorced first wife, one Amy Ashwood Garvey, who sometimes uses the name of Amy Ashwood, who sometimes uses the name of Amy Ashwood Garvey, as he put it, back into the country, even waiving some immigration procedures to enlist her aid in anti-Garvey campaign. In the period while Garvey was courting prior to each of his two marriages, enterprising persons came up with the idea that he could be charged under some immorality statute, such as the Mann Act, which prohibited the interstate transportation of women for immoral purposes. In 1919, a few months prior to his marriage to Amy Ashwood, an anonymous writer to the Department of Justice has suggested he be charged with violating the Mann Act, since Ashwood had accompanied him on tour across state lines. The United States Consul in Kingston, Charles Latham, made a similar suggestion to the Department of State concerning his then secretary, Amy Jakes, a mere month after Garvey had slipped away from him and re-entered the United States in 1921. In July of that same year, a telegram to the Department of State originating in New York had again mentioned the Mann Act as a possible means of proceeding against Garvey because of his courtship of Amy Jakes. Garvey himself was unaware of such schemes. I'll read this last page, 190, and we'll stop. The post office, a long-standing tool in the fight against radicals, sometimes figured in the official struggle against Garvey. In 1919, a copy of the British espionage report, Unrest Among the Negroes, was formed by the Department of State to the Postmaster General for any action the latter might deem advisable. In that year, Assistant Attorney General R.P. Stewart and J. Edgar Hoover, who also suggested the use of post office laws against Garvey. Garvey's tribulations at the hand of the post office continued, and in some respects even escalated after his deportation in 1927. Toward the end of 1928, it was reported that the postal authorities were investigating what was described as a census of the Afro-American population. Garvey was said to be directing this census from Jamaica, and 40,000 letters were said to be already sent out. Shortly thereafter, a group of persons signing themselves sufferers wrote to the Attorney General requesting that a stop be put to the monies destined for Garvey, since he was still, in their opinion, fraudulently fleecing Black people in the United States. It was not until 1932, though, that the postal authorities finally clamped down on Garvey's mail. On May 28th, a postmaster in Youngest Island, South Carolina, wrote the post office department at Charleston, South Carolina, stating that for the previous 4 to 6 weeks, a large amount of first-class mail had been coming in. It was all addressed to quote-unquote Negroes and in the care of a gentleman who did, quote, not do any manual labor, end quote, but made a living as an organizer, quote, among the more ignorant Negroes in the various societies, end quote. A remarkably rapid correspondence ensued between Youngest Island, Charleston, and Washington, D.C. And a mere 5 days later, the Postmaster General in Washington issued a fraud order. Fraudulent return to Jamaica. All right, I think I messed up. Remarkably rapid correspondence ensued between Youngest Island, Charleston's, and Washington, D.C., and a mere 5 days later, the Postmaster General in Washington issued a fraud order by virtue of which all of Garvey's mail was to be stamped quote-unquote fraudulent and returned to Jamaica undelivered. Also, no money orders intended for Garvey or any of his concerns was to be issued, certified, or paid. Garvey had, on this occasion, indeed unknowingly infringed the rules, since some of the offending letters contained raffle tickets which could not be mailed without official permission. As always, Garvey and his supporters in the United States embarked on the accustomed path of protest letters to the authorities, since the ban involved all mail to and from Garvey. The order was finally revoked 2 years later, April 1934. We'll stop there. We've got a next mass meeting. We're supposed to be discussing part 2. So I think I broke this up in half, and technically we've done half of this chapter. So we will stop for tonight's meeting and open the floor for any discussion, questions, comments on tonight's topic.
Wow. It just shows the extent that these people will go when they want to take somebody down. I mean, it's just crazy. It stops it. I mean, there's like different chapters that talks about the attacks and the sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
They try to stop the African movement stuff because that was a threat to, to their colonizing and pillaging of the African continent. And now they're stopping the paper because, they're saying things that they know wasn't true. Like, on one, I don't even remember which one it was. I think it may have been the propaganda chapter where they're basically was saying that Garvey's newspaper was telling the readers, the Garveyites, the recipients, that they should kill white people. It was just downright ridiculous, the things that they would say. And then the sad thing is they would line up, our kinfolks, our skin folks who aren't necessarily kinfolks against us. And they would, join the madness with their oppressor and oppress their Black brothers and sisters. So it's just amazing to me, to see the extent that the authorities would go, with the spying and stuff. It's like even right now going on in Africa, the French was kicked out of Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso, and they're trying to go to another country. And, it's like they're fighting terrorism, right? And it's all just propaganda and hypocrisy. It's like this big push to fight terrorism on the African continent. That's why they want their military bases in various countries. But at the end of the day, when you really look at it, the West, including the United States and Europe, they've been the biggest terrorists on the African continent. But those are, stories for other days. But yeah, it's just amazing to me, the lies and the stuff to justify the madness and just the evil. And then it's just sad that when they give us 30 shillings, 30 pieces of shillings, our people will join force with them. Grace first.
yeah, it shows how much they fear our uniting. They really fear unity from us, and it's quite evident. Anytime they would commit fraud to pin fraud on Garvey, it's just insane, man. Race first.
Race first. Thank you, Brother Art. Thank you, Sister Diane. Queen Mother Moses, you got your hand up.
Yes, give thanks, blessings, race first. Greetings, members, guests, well wishers, all protocol observe on this, very important date of August 25th, And as we look at the race first with Tony Martin and see how infiltration, happens, and it is no different today, as the sister was clearly showing also, that it takes ones that look like ourselves to get within I and get exposed and still turn around and I. But we have to keep track of all of the unity in this time that I are dealing with. Today is also Constitution Day for the Ethiopian World Federation. And that is important because it was the UNIA-ACL who gave the Constitution in 1918 that was, amended during that August 1920 convention in New York and the infamous Madison Square Garden, which was attended by over 25,000 African Americans, and we know it was many an African at that convention. So we know we have important connection for the global African population. Our preamble said, be it resolved, and we know Garveyites, Africans' lack of a voice was solved. You understand? Because the preamble had continued that the Negro people of the world, and I know that includes all black man, woman, boy, and girl. So it was so very plain why globally Africans did complain with UNI-ACL, complaints and declaration. So we're quite clear, because the Constitution of August 25th, 1937 is, of course, built from the 1918 and 1920. And I give thanks that the President General of the UNIA-ACL, President General Duncans, is also a member of the Ethiopian World Federation Local 12. And I am also a member of Ethiopian World Federation Local 12, and also a member of the Julius, Nyerere, UNIA-ACL 421, because it's one people, and it was always meant as one people. His Majesty had sent the Ethiopian and given Garvey the land, deed and gold, reserve certificates, etc. in 1920. Nobody, most people don't know that history. But Garvey was intent on Liberia, so he never take up what was given to him for Ethiopia. But the time come, I would know, say, the land grant was given, and we continue to be one people working together. It is very important that now is the time for I. Remember Garvey saying, no matter where the Chinese are look for them, God through them spectacle, and the white people through their spectacle, though it me, let us look to the God of Ethiopia through our own spectacle, and worship the Holy Spirit of God through the spectacle of Ethiopia. We don't want no more division about Black American, this and Rastafari. Too much of that have been in the UNIA, AEWF, and all kinds of divide and rule. I are one people, Africans born all over the world. And Marcus Garvey tell us we have to hold on to that identity. Be Africans wherever we are. You understand? And hold on to the Ethiopian identity, and so worship God through the spectacle of Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is the only African country never ever colonized. So I know when we hold on to that identity, we are a people that don't have to worry about slavery, because we're born free. For all these words, I, the Empress Moses, now known as Nana Ama Dede the First Wunzuya, Queen Mother Moses. Blessings. Give thanks.
Shay,
Shay.
raise first, sister.
Ashe, thank you, Queen Mother Moses. Raise first. Anyone else wanted to comment on the topic?
Hey, Brother John,
Brother Cornelius.
Daniel. I just wanted to ask one thing. I caught the last little bit of that, so I wasn't able to hear the whole thing. But I was just wondering, because they diverted all of this money that was intended or being directed to the Black Star Line, they diverted it, confiscated it, sent it back and everything. Could there be a legal case for reclaiming that money that was legally, rightfully the UNIA that they did? Just a thought I was having, that's all.
Attorney Motep, I would call on you for your expertise in that field. Attorney Motep, are you there?
Yes. Forgive me. That's a difficult question to the extent that of the conviction, Garvey's conviction would be the legal grounds, and then to try to sue to reclaim the money at this late stage, or could they have done it then? Again, that conviction would be an impediment. Also, supposedly after the conviction, if anyone who wanted their money back at that time, I'm thinking there would be a procedure to return funds to those requesting, who had made the payment donation, who wanted it back, that there would be an avenue to get their contribution back. But that's just some of the challenges of their day, to try to bring a suit action to get the money back. I'm thinking it'd be very difficult.
I wonder if there's any record of how much it really was, how much it was in total.
Yeah, that would make it even more of a challenge. I mean, because as we just talked about, some of the records were confiscated, but we would have to do our due diligence on our side to come up with some numbers as to what is owed and records that can support that.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Brother Cornelius. Briefly, before we jump over to member share, I just wanted to remind everyone, there's only two types of members in the UNIA, those that are members by race and those that are active members, dues paying members. So if you have not paid joining fee or dues to the UNIA, please consider doing so through Cashapp, PayPal, with the links above, or if you'd like to make an additional contribution, not donation. Yeah, so this is, I gotta make sure these words, contributions. If you'd like to make an additional contribution, that would be welcomed as well. Okay, without any further ado, if there aren't any other questions on our topic, we will move to member share. Officers, y'all are getting a break. Let's see. Briefly, from an officer standpoint, and then we'll jump into member share. I'll take care of our officers report this week. We got executive meeting coming up on September 7th, I believe. First Saturday in September is September 7th. Some of the things that we will discuss as an executive body. Bylaws has been a topic we've discussed all year. We'll need to provide an update on what we see from each of our particular offices. And I will kind of need to check on everyone's adherence to the responsibilities of their office. But if all of our officers are doing the work of their office, then we will have a very successful division and well-functioning division. So bylaws will be a topic. Garvey Day 2024, 2025. So detailed report on how we did for Garvey Day financially as well as membership. And we can discuss the committee for Garvey Day 2025. We had some comment, some perceptions of doing things last minute. So let's take advantage of the full year and take an opportunity at our September executive meeting to create a committee for Garvey Day 2025 and begin planning immediately. Race First Study. Sister Diane, our First Lady Vice President, has done a great job of hosting our Race First study groups on Tuesdays. Probably, I think September 17th. Sometime in September. Yeah, September 17th will be the third Tuesday. So we've only got 2 Tuesdays left. Well, not 2 Tuesdays. We've got three weeks left for Race First. So we'll be wrapping up our Race First study group over the next 3 weeks. And then on the 17th of September, we plan to start our Course of African Philosophy training course for officers of the UNIA. So those are 2 updates for our study group. Is wrapping up Race First for this term, and we'll obviously pick that back up soon, probably after Course of African Philosophy. But that's just an update. So officers and members, please make yourselves available for our Tuesday 8 p.m. study groups. Beyond that, August 30th, So this is not going to be for a September executive meeting. I got to discuss this now. August 30th, there's an event at Georgia State. I don't know if Brother Langston is on to speak to that, but there's an event at Georgia State. So officers that are available that would like to attend, we talk about our engagement with the youth, engagement with the school. So this coming weekend, we have an opportunity at Georgia State to set up a table and introduce the college to the UNIA. So officers, if engaging the youth is something that we want to do, please reach out to me. August 31st, Saturday, we will be celebrating International African Independence Day. Everyone should have gotten that in the meeting notice that sent out. Pull up that flyer briefly. So August 31st, we will have a virtual celebration for International African Independence Day. On the last mass meeting, we discussed the Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. It's Declaration 53 that states that August 31st will be a day of celebration for our people. We're working to make this a regular program as it should be, as stated in the Declaration of Rights. But we want to find a way to make it a joint program. This is an international celebration, so it should have international attendance. We live in an age of communication or age of information. We have access to virtual technology. So as of right now, Atlanta Division 421, Chicago Division 330, Chicago Division 429, as well as Division 401. Washington, D.C. Division 330 and Baltimore Division 106 are on board for this celebration. So August 31st, 6 p.m. until hopefully until 12, we'll be celebrating and have different presentations from each of the divisions throughout that day. So please mark that on your calendars. Beyond that, some things that our officers we will need to discuss in our second September executive meeting. Brother Macias has a guest coming for September 12th business meeting to discuss some credit financial literacy education, some things that we're looking at amongst our executives and making sure we have a mastery of amongst our executives. And once we, can prove the benefit, prove a proof of concept, that'll be a program that we plan to bring to our membership. But September 12th, our officers, that'll be a next opportunity to progress that discussion. Some other things that we'll need to discuss in September is October Ancestors Day. If we will be celebrating Ancestors Day this year and what our plans are for that. November award celebration. Would like to continue that this year as well. We also need to discuss, if we are going to do it, who will be our award recipients for this year? Who do we want to acknowledge? Who has been doing the work in our community, particularly? We want to start there before we start to look at outside the community, but definitely who's doing the work in our community. And I think there's a lot of people obviously doing the work we can choose from. So we want to kind of keep that an Atlanta area specific. So that's some things we'll think about for September executive meeting. Kwanzaa, are we doing Kwanzaa this year? Plans for Kwanzaa, we discussed that in September. Orientation, got local and national. We haven't had a local orientation since I think 2022. We had one, but we haven't had an in-person orientation in a few years. So something else I'd like to discuss in our executive September meeting is planning an in-person orientation, making sure new members, as well as, at this point, members that have been around for over a year have a understanding of the expectations, the path to develop.
What you doing, Dad?
Brother Orman.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put it. No, excuse me.
But understanding the expectations of membership, basically. We haven't done that in person, so it's something I'd like to discuss amongst our officers at our September executive meeting. Sewing Sundays, something that we're working with our second lady vice president, Sister Cecily. We've got there's sewing facility here in Atlanta that we can do some sewing projects on Sundays. So that's something that we'll be talking more about, but I'll kind of discuss that as well in September. Black government IDs. We need to make sure we are continuing to promote our Black government IDs, but also officers. We need to be supporting our Black government ID program. So all officers, that'll be an expectation for officers to have Black government ID. That'll be something we'll talk about. In addition to that, officers next year or very soon, there'll be an expectation for officers. We got two options. One, either we pay our dues yearly, or two, we sign up for automatic recurring dues payment. But I don't think as officers, we should be still, doing month to month. We should be able to take care of a year as an officer, and that's an expectation of officers. And Ross, I know you're on now. We talked about financial report meeting. So myself, you as treasurer, Brother Eric as assistant treasurer, and Brother Najee as financial secretary in training. We need to decide, set up a regular, at least monthly meeting for our financial reports. And that's what I'll be expecting to discuss, or that'll be the priorities for our September executive meeting for members. Also want our members to be aware of our weekly programs on this Zoom. This Zoom that you're attending now, it should be open at these times. So Monday, we have a spiritual program at 8 p.m. Tuesdays at 8 p.m. we have African-centered study. We're wrapping up race first, and we will be transitioning over to course of African philosophy. But these are weekly programs every week on this Zoom at this time. We have meetings. Thursday at 8 p.m. Is our business meeting where we discuss our business ideas, business ventures, and that's open to UNI members as well. Saturday orientation takes place at 8 p.m. It's not going on right now, and that is not on this Zoom. That'll get you'll get a link for that, but please make yourselves available, especially new members, for the Zoom orientation that's provided by our parent body Saturdays at 8 p.m. Once those start, once we pick those back up, I'll be sending out that invitation. What else do we got Saturdays? I think that's it. We may have other programs that we pick up on Saturdays that we may do like at 3 o'clock or something. But right now, and then Sundays, Whirlwind newsletter staff for those that are interested in promotions, journalism, writing articles, anything like that, propaganda. Our Whirlwind newsletter staff meets every Sunday morning. Is it 10 to 12, Ross? Well, it's Sunday mornings. Our Whirlwind newsletter staff meets on this Zoom, and you are welcome to attend and support. And then this will be 7 p.m. What is the name of that place? Village. Sundays, 5 p.m. We have our mass meetings. So today, UNIA. Next week, it'll be Collective Black People Movement, but the same Zoom, and it's a weekly available session. And our sewing classes, we'll pick those up 7 p.m. We'll announce that more as we become more familiar with the schedule, but we'll be having sewing classes 7 p.m. at Village Skate Park. Any questions or comments on weekly programs? And we're looking at having in-person mass meetings. We were supposed to have a in-person mass meeting today, but scheduling conflict. So future announcements, we're looking to have some in-person mass meetings. So if there aren't any questions, then we will move to membership. No questions? Okay. Okay. Oh, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, brother.
Yes, brother. Good Garvey Day and race first. I guess I had a question about how does one connect with the UNIA who doesn't have actual who won't have like a cellular device or any access to Wi-Fi or the internet?
And you, out-of-state individual, correct?
Well, the UNIA, right? So I'm gonna say anywhere, right? So I like to hear both. If you got both answers for um um global, international, and local, out of state.
You saying how do we connect without Wi-Fi?
How does an official or non-official member of the UNIA connect with the organization who doesn't know how to access a cellular device or internet or Wi-Fi?
It'd be very difficult in this time. So the answer is you would have to catch us at our in-person events.
What if this person is smitten of mobilization?
So no phone, no internet, and has trouble with transportation.
Using Ebonics, he's a POW.
Prisoner of war.
Yeah.
That you give me a very difficult example. The only thing that we could do at that, the only thing I can see is there would have to be a local division of the UNIA.
I see.
That's yeah. You give me a very
That was good. That was good right there. I'll take that right there. I'm grateful of that one.
okay. Okay.
The POW, you mean incarcerated?
I'll say because I don't know England laws, I'll just say like a prisoner of war. Yeah. You can add that in there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe lobotomized too, but that's why I just said prisoner of war or castrated.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe that's what you meant by that. But
Well, in addition to all of it, if you got something for that too, I'll take that. I'll be grateful to hear that too, as well, please, and thank you.
Well, blue cards, are getting to one of those by phone. But I guess you still have internet or Wi-Fi to get into.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like without that's we've been kind of building, our ability. Go ahead.
How about we answer it like this? How would the honorable? Well, I know he would know how to, but how I say to him, but how would the honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey communicate now terms today if he was in the Atlanta prison today?
Letters, most likely. Right, letters.
Okay. Letters. That he wouldn't know how. You heard of something called a kite?
Yes, I have. That's a
What
form.
about those great Venian memes?
What do you mean?
Grapevine, the great Venian memes.
Yeah.
The grapevine science studies. I know there got to be it's obvious a science. We should. I mean, I'm sure there are other means to communicate besides using the pair of Baphomet's entrapments.
A letter would be the only thing that he would have access outside of telephone.
I'm saying today, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey is today in prison, right? Today, what would you think he would do? Of course, a letter, and maybe he know about kites. What else?
Letter and phone.
Okay. Also, too, I got I wanted to put this is being recorded, right?
Yes, it is.
And this is able to, and a non-official and official member will be able to access these recordings.
Yes, we share them publicly.
Respect to, I believe, Alkebulan. I can't recall, but it's a book called How Capitalistic is the Constitution. That's a book I would like to bring forth. It came from the American Enterprise Institute Constitutional Studies. That's one. The other one is an economic interpretation of the Constitution of the United States, Charles A. Beard. That's another one I'd like to bring forth. This is Paul Ifayomi Grant. He's an African and he's an African as far as I can say a POW in Brittany Brittany. This book. He wrote a book called Buy Now, Credit Crunch or Pay Later: How Debt is Used to Create Financial Slavery. This is a book, The Epic of Sanjara, a West African tradition. This in reference towards Great Venian studies, the Grapevine studies. And also I have to say, of course, the Honorable Ora Kentake, Amy Jacques Garvey. She has selected writings from the Negro world. This is it's a collection of some of her writings. Let me see. Of course, this book right here called Magical Child: Rediscovering Nature's Plan for Our Children. If you can acquire this one is called Theology of Marcus Garvey.
Brother Coachy?
Yeah, okay. I just want to bring stuff out there.
No, you're fine. Just if you could please be patient because sound like you were doing.
Yeah, I understand. I'm with you. I had to, say it where they in the best way I could, infomercial, if you will. No, I ain't gonna say that. I just wanted to push that out. Thank you for the opportunity. Race first, and I yield.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother Nkosi. We just want to make sure. I mean, because we're going into membership, we want to make sure we allow our sisters to speak first. Let's see.
I apologize about the Queen Mothers and Black Queens of Beauty. I should.
First sister that I saw on the line, Sister Rosa Robbins. Sister Rosa. Member shares anything that you would like to discuss, whether it's related to the topic or anything.
Well, I'd like to say that I had a nice time last week at the Marcus Garvey celebration down at the shrine. And also I want to prize the gift card, which I haven't received yet. And I was a member, I came today on behalf of Ross Marvin. And I was a member, but I'm not a member now. I have reached and made my 80th birthday. Celebration July 30th last month. So I found that the organization is a lot different than when I was coming before I was involved. It's changing. I haven't adapted to the change yet. So when I saw Ross Marvin, I was happy because I was able to ask him, like, what happened? Because I was used to being under his tutelage.
Yes.
But I thought I would, just connect up with the day to see what's going on. But the meeting is very long, I see.
Yes, meetings, mass meetings, about 3 hours, 5 to 8. We try to break them up into 3 sections. One is focused around the organization and usually some historical aspect, historical lesson of the UNI. First thing that we touch on, whether it's Declaration of Rights, the 5 requirements to establish a government, the 2 Amy Garveys, or tonight UNI versus USA. We want to make sure we have a good grounding of the history of the UNIA, founded in 1914. There's a lot
You're breaking up.
Oh, it's founded in 1914. There's a lot that has taken place, and we need to make sure that the new generation of leadership is aware of that history. So that's one of the things. And then the second aspect usually touches on organizational, how we're functioning as an organization. I'm gonna turn my camera off because that usually helps. But how we're functioning as an organization. So it's a report from our officers and a direct, communication or a direct opportunity to communicate with each of the officers and responsible for each of the different officers. So if you got a question on education, our education coordinator can respond. You got a question on defense, our legionnaires can respond. You got a question on business, our business coordinator can respond. So the second portion usually centers around the organization, what we're doing, what our plans are. And then the third section, which we're in now, is member share, where we reach out to the community and allow everyone a chance to share whatever it is on their heart or their mind in which they're concerned about. So, yes, it is a bit lengthy, 3 hours, but we try to make them you know, information filled 3 hours.
I have a question. Does the program focus on things for seniors? Because like I said, I'm 80 at this point, and I've been around a long time with the Shrine and know a lot about Marcus Garvey and the movement. I was born in Georgia but raised in Harlem, New York. So I was with Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all of those folks and Malcolm X and all of those. I was with the movement with those growing up in Harlem.
We have an elders department, elders group. Brother Orman. Brother Orman, is Brother Orman still here? Okay. To answer your question bluntly, we don't have as many elder related programs or an elder support focus as much as I would like. We've been trying to focus on the youth for quite some time, but in the process, we've overlooked our elders. We do have a charity program focused towards the homeless, but we've also kind of overlooked those that are imprisoned. So elders and the imprisoned are two groups that we need to be better.
The elders are the key to bringing the seniors. The seniors bring the youth together, and they're the ones that's very important to connect the two. That's where the division is right now. We're having so many problems with the gang violence and all this other stuff because we are separated, and especially when we had the COVID situation going on. A lot of the elders died, and we also separated because we couldn't be with the young people for fear of getting COVID. So I think it's very important. This is an opportune time now to focus on bringing the elders and the youth together. Because when I listen to a lot of the black radio stations and all, I'm hearing that's what they're really doing now. They're trying to bring the elders and the young people together.
Yes. Reverend Slaughter in Beloved Community Church, we worked with him over the years. He's also reminded us of that focus. But just being, direct, from my standpoint as president, we don't have, we have an elders department, but again, I don't think we have enough programs focused towards engagement. One of the things that we talked about that does kind of touch on that relationship, and I hope we can continue to develop, would be our ancestors celebration that we do in October, where we acknowledge, our ancestors that have, done great work. But usually the knowledge base comes from the elders.
Right.
And that is disseminated to the youth. And then our award ceremony is a combination of both youth and elders, where we acknowledge some young people that are doing work in the community, but primarily we make sure we acknowledge those living elders that have done great work that are still here.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Yes, thank you for the question. Officers, I need some help. I don't like saying we don't have programs addressed at certain groups. And I know there's a lot that we're doing, there's a lot that we have to do. Most of us are focused in our groups, whether it's youth, education, arts and culture, constitution, membership, finances, business. Everyone feels as though our hands are full, but as you can see, there's still needs in the community that we have to address. So, officers, September. Yeah, matter of fact, I'm gonna make that a bullet point. Elder and youth programs. Thank you, Sister Rosa.
You're welcome.
President John,
Yes, Dr. Kuda.
maybe just to add, I know that you have been discussing with Sister Cicely about Division 421 UNIA starting up a radio station. And maybe this is where we can have our elders come and speak on the radio station, you know, and share the history, the knowledge with the youth. Maybe you forgot about that part, because also those maybe who don't have cell phones could maybe get information through the radio station that is in the pipeline that Division 421 is planning on coming up with. Just to make mention of that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Kuda. I'll have, let me see here. Just make another note.
The black radio stations are hot and jumping right now, especially in Atlanta, in Georgia. Black radio is what's happening.
I got you.
Okay.
We'll look into that in September. Okay. Next sister that we've got, Sister Reverly.
Hey, good evening, good afternoon.
Great.
Race first, everybody. Hoping everybody is having a great weekend. I don't have really any comment. I've just enjoyed being here tonight and listening to the reading of the book, Race First. If I had any question, I think it would be probably related to that. I'm trying to remember if it was mentioned that there was a plan for asking for the exoneration of Mr. Garvey. I didn't remember, but I think there was a plan I heard. You can let me know. But other than that, no other comments. Have a great, blessed week. Happy birthday, Madam Lady Rosa, and many more to you. Race
Thank
first.
you very much. I'm a retired RN. I've been a nurse for 48 years. I retired from Grady. But I got like some other things that I'm involved with as well. But that's what I retired as, a registered nurse, 48 years.
Wonderful.
Never thought I would live to get to 80 years old.
And you look beautiful. So
Thank
many
you.
more to you.
Thank you.
Race first, family.
Race first. Thank you, Sister Reverly. Sister Reverly. We're good. Okay. Just checking over the list. Were there any other sisters? Well, I guess I can go to our officers. We didn't do official officer report. Sister Diane, is there anything you want to share?
Just that the event last weekend was great. And even though we're kind of wrapping up the Race First study, whoever wants to join us is more than welcome as we wrap up. You know, we have a few more weeks to go. So just, you know, want to encourage anyone. If you like tonight's reading, definitely join us on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. And whoever was at last weekend's event, it was great seeing all of you guys, and it was an awesome event. And outside of that, not much more. Race first.
Race first. Thank you, Sister Diane, and yes, thank you for that reminder on race first. And again, yes, great job, everyone, for Garvey Day 2024. Move to our next sister, Dr. Kuda. Was there anything that you wanted to share?
Oh, thank you, President John. At this moment, no, I don't have much to share, but just to say, yes, the convention was very very moving. President General Duncan gave a good speech, as usual. Very I find him to be a very genuine leader and very passionate when he speaks and very honest. And I admire those, gifts in him that I've observed in both conventions that I've attended. So yes, the convention was very well attended and everything went smooth and well. Thank you. My report will be following up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kuda. And again, new members may not understand, but Dr. Kuda went to, and Brother Najee have just returned from our most important gathering for the UNIA every year. As we were reading today, we talked about, we briefly touched on the first international conventions of the Negro peoples of the world held in August 1920. Every August we try to hold convention. As you saw in the text, we haven't been successful, but as of recently, past several years, we've been able to hold convention consecutively every August. So that's our largest gathering. That is the, let me read this. The governing body of the UNIA-ACL is the International Convention, which meets annually unless otherwise provided for. So that meeting that we have in August, that meeting that Dr. Kuda is speaking of, is the governing body of the UNIA-ACL, and we won't meet again. That convention won't convene until August of next year. We will have another High Executive Council preparation meeting in April of next year. But those are the two largest meetings and most important meetings of the UNIA held every year. So thank you, Dr. Kuda, for representing Division 421.
You're welcome, President John.
Were there any other sisters before we go to our brothers? Any other sisters that did not get a chance to share? Okay, we're getting ready to go to our brothers. I just got an email I want to share with y'all really quick. She sent this, but it don't matter. It's okay. Just got this flyer updated to include 407. 407. I told the wait. They're 401. I think I told them the wrong number. Oh man, yeah, I did. Gotta get that corrected. So this is gonna be Chicago Division 401 and 429, DC Division 330, and Baltimore Division 106. So yeah, just a reminder, that'll be our next kind of gathering, or next time we will come together as a UNIA. And that's a very important meeting. That August 31st represents the completion of the first International Convention of the Negro Peoples of the World. And it should be an annual holiday. So we definitely look forward to celebrating that event this year in a couple of days. Brother Nkosi, you got your hand up. Is that a new hand?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First, I want to apologize because originally I was attempting to raise my hand and I just tapped the incorrect function key. So I apologize for that to all the Black Queen mothers and the African original women's. I apologize for that that discrepancy of myself. I don't really recall what I wanted to say too much. I'm grateful to be in this live, and I hope that I guess we can't hope because that's irrational. Um, I I I must envision for myself to bring forth something that can bring tangible physical infrastructure for the African people, specifically attached with the UNIA. I say.
I should. Yeah, that's a collaborative venture. You have the right mindset. But I would also say, as a UNIA, we, those that have stepped up to a position of leadership that have taken responsibility of our race, we have a responsibility as well to provide avenues to obtain resources. So it's a mutual effort, but you are definitely in the right mindset. Okay. Next brother that will bring on, I guess I'll go to my elders. Attorney Imhotep, Counsel General. Then I'll go to Ross Marvin.
Greetings. I don't have anything to share. Race first.
All right, race first. Thank you, Counsel General. Yes. Yeah. So hopefully in our September executive meeting, we can kind of get some clarity on convention and what that means for Division 421 locally. The new third Assistant President General and anything else that we need to be aware of. Okay. With that, we'll bring in our treasurer, Ross Marvin. President Ross.
Yes, greetings, family. Just want to say that August has been a very busy month. We're still not finished yet. All heap of things happening. And want to big up Sister Rosa Robinson coming on the call today. Sister Rosa had mentioned that she's not a member, but remember all African people are members of the UNIA. And since you're African, you're a member. The only difference is we have active members, and those are the members who pay their dues, and non-active members, those who are Africans but still didn't pay their $3 for this month dues. So, Sister Rosa, you're a member for life, because all of we is African and we can't change who we are in this lifetime. As far as Treasury report, as President John said, myself, President John, Brother Eric, Brother Najee will be getting together, breaking down the finances of what happened with Marcus Garvey Day so we can have a full report for our membership. And having 15 new members join on Marcus Garvey Day is a success. And it was such a great experience, great Marcus Garvey Day. I had one question, President John. Is the parent body going to take part in the celebrations for August 31st? I was wondering if the parent body will be taking part in the celebrations for August 31st.
I have not gotten confirmation.
Okay.
So I've sent 2 emails to Secretary General. Going back to sometime in July. Maybe it was earlier this month. I think it was earlier this month.
Yeah.
But sent 2 emails to Secretary General copying the High Executive Council. Have not gotten a response. Also included the invitation in our message to the convention.
Okay.
So
Everybody should understand that the convention, the African Independence Day is an event that should be coordinated by our parent body.
President Ross, someone said your volume is low. If you could speak up.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying that our Independence Day, or the day that the government was formed, August 31st, 1920, that should be an event that is coordinated. Our parent body should be involved in it. and they should be providing the leadership for that event and not the local divisions. But I want to big up the local divisions, all the divisions who's taken part in our Independence Day. I don't have much to share right now. Just want to say thank you, President John and Sister Diane, for the reading of Race First, USA versus the UNIA. Who would have thought that the UNIA and the USA was in the same ring together, duking it out? But it did happen in history, y'all. And as we heard in the reading, they had tried to shut down the UNIA branches from all over, from New Orleans, Canada, Panama, you name it, and thing, you know. But anyway, that's all I have to share for right now.
Congratulations on your award, Ross Marvin, that you received at the event last night. Last Saturday. I was very proud of you.
Thank you.
The organization recognized you like to that level.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Miss Rosa. Boy, I'm just saying I was so grateful, and I was surprised because nobody gave me the heads up. President John just popped it out on me at the event, and I wasn't expecting it because I was just having a good time. The vibes were so nice. Meeting with everybody, connecting with everybody was so good. So thank you, and congratulations to you, Sister Rosa, for winning your little thing you won on
Gift card.
Gift card, yes.
I'm still waiting to receive it. I didn't get it yet.
Okay.
All right.
I know you'll soon get it. And
if right, I'll let y'all know if I don't.
Okay, yeah, definitely let us know.
All right.
That's all I have to share for right now, President John.
All right, Ross, thank you.
It's an honor to serve. It's an honor to serve. So I give thanks.
Yeah, that's what it's about, and that's why we have to continue these discussions yearly, but acknowledging, those that are doing the work. As Garvey said, we must canonize our own saints, but we must acknowledge those within our own community and create our own heroes and role models. So Ross Marvin, Mukasa Dada, great examples of their lives and the journeys that they've taken throughout their lives on behalf of African people. It's a testament, and it should be acknowledged. So it's a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you, Ross Marvin. Okay. So next would be Brother Cornelius. Anything you want to share with the family? Brother Cornelius, you there? Okay. We'll try to come back to Brother Cornelius. Brother Art, anything you want to share? Any questions, any concerns?
Race First, family. I don't have anything to share at this time.
Okay.
Just enjoying a good meeting.
What happened with Secretary's call for the month of August?
I didn't make that call. I had another engagement I had to attend.
Do you know if there was a meeting?
I think there was. I didn't get a notice, but I'm sure there was a meeting.
Okay. That's where I was going. I didn't get a notice either. I sent the message to the parent body asking about the plans for August meetings, but there were other priorities, so we didn't have a president's meeting, and I don't think we had a secretary's meeting in the month of August. So we should have updates in September.
Yeah, okay. All right, race first.
Race first. Thank you, Brother Art. I think that's all of our officers. Were any officers that did not get a chance to share? My brother Kosi get knocked out. All right, we will continue with our members. Got a few more members that have not had a chance to share. First, we'll go to Brother Giovanni. Greetings, Brother Giovanni. Brother Giovanni, are you there? Okay. All right, Brother Giovanni may have stepped away. While Brother Giovanni is away, we'll go to UNI member 292 in Alexandria, Virginia, Minister Monta.
Hello, hope everyone is doing well. Don't have anything to say, just tuning in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Minister Monta, for tuning in. Appreciate it. All right, I'm losing track of my brothers. Brother Orman, was there anything that you wanted to share?
No, I have nothing really to share. Peace and blessings to the family. Race first.
Race first, Brother Orman. Now that I got you, there was a question that came up in regards to elders and support for elders, programs for elders, making sure we have the youth engaged with the elders. You have helped us in our elders as an elder coordinator for the UNIA in some capacity. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Any thoughts that you can give on some things that we can do to address that connection?
Yes. The elders need to, as I say, be more visible in the community, including myself, and be in the presence of the young people so that we can share our vantage points from being seniors and being in this life for such a long period of time. We can share our experiences with them and maybe gender some more understanding and preparation for them becoming elders one day. It's sorely necessary for young people to have the proper knowledge and respect for elders because therein lies their blessing, even though many don't realize it. Some do, some don't. But just coming together with the young people and being present with the young people is a positive step forward. That's about all I can think of at the present time. I might think of something down the road a little piece, but that's it. Race first.
Race first. Thank you, Brother Orman. Yes, thank you for that. And that's kind of what we've done with our meetings and with our programs, bringing the family together, elders, youth, everybody at the table. But we have to be more visible. We have to continue to develop those programs. And as you were explaining it, what came to my mind, we are in a new reality. This virtual world, I think we are, what we're doing here in the UNIA Division 421 may be setting the example for the future and how to bridge that gap because this is a platform that's accessible or convenient. So we could have elders and youth on this platform together to kind of bridge that gap. So thank you, Brother Orman, for those comments. And yes, we will be, that needs to be a priority. Everything is a priority, but that needs to be a higher priority is making sure we have that connection between the youth and the elders. So thank you again, Brother Orman.
You're welcome, brother. Race first.
Race first. Okay, Brother Giovanni stepped away. think I went through everyone. Was anyone that I did not call on, that did not get a chance to share? Oh, Brother Nkosi, you said that you had something else to share.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity again, Race First. I wanted to know if there was well, I know there is though, but I don't know how official. Well, I don't know anything, right? But I'm trying to. I must learn. Um, what is the UNIA's official stance and viewpoint and policy on biological and genetic warfare? As in the Tuskegee syphilis, forced sterilization, um, swine flu, at the examples like the anthrax, you know what I'm saying? Like when Ebola comes about, and right now, you got the pale Baphomets, they made the laboratory with the cocaine and stuff, but as far as the coronavirus, what is I wanted to know, and that was that question. The other question I wanted to know about, being that we are in what was known as the Confederacy, what is the official standpoint and viewpoint on pale Baphometic and non-African terrorism, as in like the strange fruit, if anybody can recall what a strange fruit is or was, because I'm in the Confederate area, if you will, and I can give you an example of an experience I had. I was going into a very pale Baphometic zone, if you will, and I was going to, trying to, I was ignorant as I am now, and I was trying to execute my what was requested of me, so I can get retribution by a lifeless currency now known as the USD dollar. And so I came upon this, like I said, this pale Baphometic terrain where a Trump flag was flying, waving. A Trump flag was flying, waving. A Trump flag was flying, waving, and on that same street you had what the pale Baphometic people called the indigenous names were under this was under this Trump flag, and then the houses, each house had a lowercase t with lights around it. And if I can recall correctly, there was a photojournalistic book by the name of Without Sanctuary, and there was a lot of sacrificial rituals, but there was a lot of lynchings that was done with African people. And then the pale Baphometic lifeless people, they will, imbue their terroristic symbols, and they'll set it ablaze with combustion, if you will. And so that was that question. I also want to know if there was a stance and viewpoint on noise pollution by non-Africans during a live session or a live session conference, better yet known as a UNIA meeting. So the questions were the genetic, what was the UNIA's viewpoint, stance, and policy on genetic biological warfare against the African by non-Africans. The second one was about of course, the whole world is a slave, right? The whole world, like, well, I'm not gonna go into that, but as far as being in the Confederate South, or what it was better yet known as the Confederate South, lynchings. How do we actually, how in modern terms, because lynching is not, now you may not see a strange fruit hanging, but you could see a lobotomized homeless African, or a lobotomized homeless African male miscegenating through their mind tactically. That's another form of lynching for me. And so I wanted to know what was the UNIA stance and viewpoint on lynching towards the African, and also the view and stance on I forget the last one, noise pollution. When there is a live session conference meeting or UNIA meeting going about, when noise pollution is going about by non-Africans, specifically attempting to, like I said, pollute the consciousness of the African mind. Those were my questions, and I yield.
Okay. I'm gonna answer the first one, the third, and then the second one last. The first one, in regards to biological warfare, and again, preface this, I can only speak for Atlanta Division 421. I can't speak for UNI-ACL leadership or other divisions. But in general, I mean, obviously, we would be against biological warfare. Any, you know, biological weapons produced to the detriment of the Africans, we are against. That's point blank, period. Whether that is produced by an African or an alien, if it's detrimental to the African, we are against it. It's that simple. The third one was noise pollution. I mean, that's something that you want to try to avoid. Mr. Garvey, in his teachings, would say we have to have places of solace, places of peace, places where we can control the level of disturbance. And that is what we have to create if that's something that is not available. So that's what I would say in regards to the noise pollution. We have to create an environment of our own, an environment in which we can be free and have peace, even if that is from a noise perspective.
I say, I want to caveat 1 second. Should we look into those nuclear war shelters? You know, when the Baphomet would put out propaganda about the nuclear warhead missiles, should we actually look into like transferring the architectural and acoustic architectural technology towards a meeting area for live session UNIA meetings, specifically to thwart noise pollution by non-Africans attempting to, you know what I'm saying, nullify our movement towards one race, one mind, one African destination?
In the long term, yes. But in the short term, what I would recommend is find a place that is safe, that is peaceful, that you're not, worried about somebody running up on you for the time in which we're having a meeting. And then I would do two things. One, I would use, once you're in a space and you have your peace and your privacy, I would use one earbuds to make sure that what is being transmitted is only being heard by me. So I would do that. And then the second thing I would do is I would probably put another set of earphones around that so that I'm not distracted or by the noises on the outside. So it insulates what's being transmitted, and then making sure just insulating what's being transmitted and making sure that it's only being heard by you. So that's the second thing. The third thing, lynching, I'll go to Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. And I like how you described it. Lynching doesn't necessarily always have to be what we know as the typical lynching, the stereotypical lynching. But Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World, Declaration 17 states that whereas the lynching by burning, hanging, or any other means of Negro beings is a barbarous practice. So the description of lobotomizing or having individuals that are not in a proper mind state as they're wandering throughout the streets could be a form of lynching. And we consider that a barbarous practice and a shame and disgrace to civilization. We therefore declare any country guilty of such atrocities outside the pale of civilization. So that is the UNIA's position on any nation that practices mistreatment of Africans. Brother Nkosi?
say thank you, Amandla and Madasi Sana.
Yes, sir. Okay, it's 11 after 8.
President John, may I say something?
Yes, President Ross.
We have to remember that, and this is, I didn't hear Brother Nkosi's comment fully, but you had responded in reference to noise pollution.
Yes.
And thing. We have to understand that African people culture, whether in America, the Caribbean, or Africa, we are very celebrative people. We like celebration. So not all noise is bad.
Mm.
See what I'm saying? So when it comes to our culture, that noise is good. When it comes to African culture. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think Brother Kosi was more so in the distractive sense, to where it takes away your ability to focus on what's
I say wait, no, I was specifically referring to like when you hear like there is I forget the name of the company that makes sirens. I forget the name of the company that do that. I think it's Rogers Sirens, if I'm not mistaken, and also aeronautical noise pollution. You know, like the propellers going off at specific time, like it. You know, it's just I don't want to go into coincidental phenomenon things of that such, but you have to, you know, if there is policy for noise pollution, you have to take that parabathymetic using subterfuge and counter, you know, COINTEL destroy the African people, right? They you know what I'm saying, like, you know, the devices, the language systems, you know, this is not of our own. So, you know, who says that they're not? It's information about wiretapping, it's information about you know, laying low and things like that. Like they got a lot of literature and studies out. They got actual, you can go and it say studies, surveillance studies. So I'm speaking in reference towards like non-African, that's why I said parabathymetic noise pollution towards Africans when we are like, because life session, UNIA conference meetings, I don't think that's like, you know, normal, you know, how you doing, or what is the colloquial is they say, what is the key Swahili they say, they say, how's it going? I forget how you say it in Key Swahili. Yeah, I forget, man.
What's the news of the day? Something like that.
Yeah, what's the news? I forget how you say it though. But I'm bringing it all. Huh?
Habari Gunny.
Habari Gunny. I say Grace first. Shout out to the CEO right there. Habari Gunny. So I'm saying like I'm not talking about African people, because you know what I'm saying, like at the end of the day, we gotta go to their factories to use they pistons and they tune-up kits. You know what I'm saying? When I say they, I mean the parabathymetic and non-African people. We utilizing their trade system. So I'm saying like, you know, what are some things that we as African people can thwart the noise pollution from non-Africans? You know, like you know, it's not just through sensory listening. They, you know, they can mess up your vibration, as in like, you know, you hear a siren, you hear a siren, or you hear a propeller going off, or a literal helicopter flying over. You know, it's a different type of vibration that you feel. So I'm saying like, you know, that's why I had that brainstorm with you about uniform, and you know, utilizing clothing to thwart. You know, we don't just have to do that to thwart the weather. We also can use uniform to thwart parabathymetic parasite, well, not parasites, but let's call it lifeless currency. Yeah, parabathymetic lifeless currency. How, you know, utilizing I apologize for speaking so tangentially, but I'm just you know, a cub.
Not a problem.
I say thank you, and I appreciate it. I'm grateful for everyone African, of course. And I yield.
Yep, Brother Kosi, we'll continue the discussion for the sake of the meeting. It's 15 after. I do want to prepare to close out. Were there any members that did not get a chance to share?
Raise first.
Dr. Shams, my apologies.
That's okay, Brother John. It's all right. We're human. We're human, and hey, we are who we are, and not a problem. Listen, there's a fifth Sunday coming up in September.
Yes, sir.
I'm scheduled to do a presentation on that day, on the fifth Sunday. Normally we skip the fifth Sunday and we just go into the next month. But in September, there's a fifth Sunday, and I'm going to be covering how we can work together as a people more harmoniously. Also, another donation came in from somewhere, and I would like to thank and express my appreciation to whoever sent in that donation. I didn't get a chance to look at the person who sent it yet, but I noticed that there was a donation there posted into my account from my website. So it's a very important website because it's a sovereign legal defense research service website. All the documents are there that make us sovereign, not just the Declaration of the Rights of Negro Peoples of the World, but other documents too that back our sovereignty up, including the U.S. Constitution, as long as that remains in effect, because Trump he wants to change everything around. Very good presentation tonight, very relevant to what may happen in the next couple of years or what they're planning on working on. If the wrong person gets in control over there in the U.S., they will come after us. Because they don't like any of our people. They don't like anything we're doing. They don't think anything is owed to us for our suffering, brutality and abuse that they put us through, deprivation and all. They don't think that they owe us anything, The Republicans don't. So I hope you're all mindful of what Kamala Harris is trying to put forward, because I believe she has a much better program. And I left a few of my links into the chat, but my main website, I'm going to express it again for you, is not helpful. USA Legislations People.bracex.com. That's not helpful. USA Legislations People.bracex.com. And if you want to call me, my phone number is on my links that's in the chat also. I don't know if you have anyone else on the conference call, but that's another way that people can access who don't have Zoom or whatever, through the conference call line, or by correspondence like was said earlier. But my phone number is area code 1917-500-1699. 1917-500-1699. And I think I like to once again express my appreciation for the fourth donation over time. It has taken some time to even get this donation, and I hope it could pick up, because I offer job opportunities, other opportunities, legal information, Garvey information for the African Legion, and a whole host of other stuff on my website. I send out emails, but I appreciate what I did get, and that's about it. Race first.
Race first, Dr. Shams. Thank you for your continued long-time active membership in the UNIA.
Yes, sir. Peace and race first.
Yes, sir. With that, we will prepare to close out, and we will close out with the Ethiopian anthem.
Ethiopia, the land of our fathers, the land where the gods love to be. As storm cloud at night suddenly gathers, our armies come rushing to thee. We must in the fight be victorious, when swords are thrust outward to gleam. For us will the victory be glorious, when led by the red, black, and green. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance, advance to meet the foe. Advance, advance to meet the foe. With the might of the red, the black, and the green. With the might of the red, the black, and the green. Ethiopia, the tyrant's falling, who smote thee upon thy knees, and thy children are lustily calling from over the distant seas. Jehovah, the Great One, has heard us, has noted our sighs and our tears. With the spirit of love, he has stirred us to be one through the coming years. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance, advance to meet the foe. Advance, advance to meet the foe. With the might of the red, the black, and the green. With the might of the red, the black, and the green. O Jehovah, thou God of ages, grant unto us sons that thee the wisdom thou gave to thy sages when Israel was sore in need. Thy voice from the temples has spoken. Ethiopia shall stretch forth the hand. By thee shall our fetters be broken, and heaven bless our dear fatherland. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance, advance to meet the foe. Advance, advance to meet the foe. With the might of the red, the black, and the green. With the might of the red, the black, and the green.
All right.
Who were like, I would never. Then who are all these men fucking?
Sorry about that. All right. Thank you, brothers and sisters. We will close out with our motto. If you would, you can come off mute. Put your black fist in the air. Repeat after me. One God.
One God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
One destiny.
Africa.
Africa.
For the Africans.
For the Africans.
Those at home.
Those at home.
And those abroad.
And those abroad.
Grace first, family. See you.
Grace first.
Grace first.
Grace first.